All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Urbana City Council. It's Monday, September 28th, 2020. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Here.
Ms. Lout?
Here.
Ms. Hersey?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Colebrook?
Here.
Mr. Miller? Mayor Marlin?
Here. We have a quorum. Our first item of business tonight is a closed session for two purposes. One is to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C2. Second reason is appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Could I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make that motion that we go into closed session pursuing those two items.
I'll second.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by Mary Alice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Lout?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. And just a note to the public, this closed session could take between 30 minutes and an hour, just so you can plan your time. And what we'll do next is the council members need to close out of this current meeting, and then Kate will have sent you an email, will have emailed you a link for a Zoom meeting into the closed session. So at this point, we all need to leave this meeting, and when we return, we will return using the link that's on your agenda. We'll come back into the council meeting. I would ask for a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Jared?
I'll second.
Second from Dennis. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Lout?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is approval of minutes from the previous meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I second.
Moved by Julie, seconded by Sharice. Are there any corrections? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Lout?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item, are there any additions to the agenda? I don't believe we have any. Next up is public input and presentations. We're going to do the presentations first. And the first one will be by the Urbana Business Association. I do want to remind the public that these are informational items only. The council will not be, there's no discussion item on the agenda related to these, and no votes will be taken. Council can ask some technical questions if they want. So who do we have? Here from the Urbana Business Association.
It looks like Tina Stober has raised her hand. Is she with the UBA?
Yes, yes. Can you please elevate her as a panelist?
Yes, I just did. She should be joining.
Great. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Did you have a PowerPoint to share?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I hit share screen?
Yes, please.
All right. Are you able to see what I see?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you. In case you don't know me, my name is Tina Stover. I'm the owner of, or co-owner of the Enchantment Alley on Main Street, and also the chair of the Urbana Business Association. And we wanted to go ahead and present this PowerPoint to you for all the chair, or not just chair, to the City Council, to just refresh you on all the things that the Urbana Business Association does for Urbana. And we would also like to thank you for your support that you have given us in the past, and hope that our relationship can continue. So I'll go ahead and not waste any time. We'll get right into it. So as you can see, the Urbana Business Association has been serving the community for about 15 years now, and we are responsible for a great many things and good works in the city as well. And we are also working on other programs and stuff to better the relationships between our businesses and with the community itself. Right now, our members, which are 122 at the moment, these are just a few of the services that we provide. Right now, we have reduced rates for advertising, and we're continuing to work on that, especially during the COVID season now, to help provide a reduced rate with WCIA, with Smile Politely, and with a number of different advertising associations and agencies and newspapers and things in town, because right now advertising is the #1 thing that our businesses need to get out to the public, to keep everything afloat right now. So that's one of our main priorities. Besides that, educational workshops and webinars have been very popular, and we're wanting to continue that. Networking opportunities to get the word out about your business and to share resources. Right now, everyone knows that we also work with the city with ribbon cutting ceremonies, new business openings, business expansions. We have the Talk of the Town newsletter. We do press releases, sponsorship opportunities for companies, business consulting, and also we have different rates now for our members to enjoy. Now, some of the future things we want to get out there are more newsletter advertisement, a virtual business roundtable discussion. Now, with that, we want to promote more businesses coming together and sharing as a group what you actually need. What can we do for you? And be a true resource to the community. We are also starting member-to-member benefits. That is going to be very popular, where if you are a member of the UBA, then I can go to another business, which is a member of the UBA, and enjoy discounts or other opportunities that may be at your business, and welcome you to come to my business as well, so that we support each other. We are also working on committee participation opportunities where we can have networking, special events and fundraising. Governmental affairs is a new committee that we're starting too, where we can be in touch with what's going on with the government and how that affects our business as a whole. And more important than anything now, COVID-19 relief resources. We are also starting a brand new thing, which is the New Horizons Mentorship Program. That program, I'm hoping to get that off the ground. It's kind of a grassroots thing right now. It is going to be a different thing than what the SBC can provide and what any other resource here in Urbana can provide. What the thought is, it's a hands-on mentoring program where a person who comes into the community for Urbana, I've met many, many people that have come in my shop and have asked me or had the idea that they wanted to start their own business. But when you say, I want to start my own business, it becomes larger than life to you. You don't know, unless you know someone, you really, where do I go? How do I get my EIN number? What are all the other resources I have? What about my idea? Is it really sound? We want to provide that service. We want to sit down with that person and map out their whole business from beginning to end and combo that with a ribbon cutting ceremony, maybe some money given to them if they complete the program. We're also looking to combo that with a 501c3 and look for federal funding as well for that to help support that whole venture. But with the idea that 10 new businesses can be started in Urbana alone per year, which will be our goal in the end of that program. So the city gets more business, we get more members, the community is serviced, and I feel like that would be a great opportunity for us to move forward on. Next, we have the events that we already are responsible for. Right now, we are responsible for the fall closed session that is held inside Lincoln Square Mall for Market in the Square. We partner with the Park District for Uncork Urbana Wine Festival. We are responsible for the Urbana Sweet Corn Festival. Next month, we'll have our Downtown Trick or Treat Festival. And then we partner with the Cultural Arts Program for the Urbana Get Down Downtown. We also sponsor the Shortest Day Parade. I'm sure most of you have heard of that, the Bone Arts Festival, and the See You Folks and Roots Festival. So the Market in the Square, which our portion of it, the city, you all know, does the, I believe, May through now, and then we pick up from November to April and partner with Lincoln Square Mall so that business can continue inside of Lincoln Square Mall. But we average 80 vendors a year, and at least 750 people each Saturday go through that market. So that provides business owners with revenue, and it provides the community with a place to shop and pick up the goods and services that they need. The Uncork Festival is hugely popular, and it takes place in June, and we're hoping to be able to continue that next June. And we partner with the Urbana Park District to host that event in Meadowbrook Park, and that averages like 3,000 people and 10 wine vineyards from Illinois. So that brings a lot of people to downtown area, and with that, revenue. Our Urbana Sweet Corn Festival, which is the biggest festival that we're responsible for, has been going on for the last 45 years. We were not able to go throw a physical Urbana Sweet Corn Festival this year, obviously because of COVID, but we did do a virtual one. And that went over very well. We were very pleased with the response for the virtual one, but we're hoping that all of the COVID-19, we'll get a vaccine, something, so that we're able to get back to some semblance of normalcy for next year so we can continue on with our good works for the city. But that averages at least 20,000 people, 100 vendors, and 20 different entertainment acts. That is a major venue for the downtown Urbana area. Our trick-or-treat, our trick-or-treater down Main Street and other businesses in Urbana gives a chance for people to be aware or made aware of the businesses in the area in all of Urbana, where we have a route that's planned. Children can enjoy safe trick-or-treating. They don't have to go door to door. The parents can come and see each individual business, and it also brings awareness, and it also brings safety, and also revenue to our downtown area. Lastly, we have our Urbana Get Down Downtown that we partner with the Cultural Arts Program. And that was a huge success last year. Again, we were not able to throw this year because of COVID, but we're hoping for next year that we were able to partner again with the Cultural Arts Program. I myself, it was a great thing to have right outside my business. It brought a lot of business to my doorstep, and I was able to enjoy that very much. Lastly, our impact on the community is great. Not only do we throw numerous events, but we're also looking for different ways to effectively bring our businesses together, effectively bring more diversity, share our information, share our resources, establish business-to-business relationships, and drive tourism down to downtown. Because without the tourism, we're always fighting for the dollar for Champaign-Urbana. We're always fighting, you know, all of the shopping and everything that's going on Prospect. We have to find ways to bring more business to Urbana, and we feel like the UVA is one of the major things that affect that. So in conclusion to our presentation, we just wanted to remind the City Council of the things that we do and what we're responsible for. We understand greatly that we haven't been able to put on some of these events, but it's just not about events for us. We do so much more, and we have so much more in the works. And we just would like for our funding to continue and not be defunded for any reason. Because without that, your support continually to the UVA, we feel like there would be a great many differences that would happen, and then a lot of the events will dry up. We won't be able to host things. A lot of the tourism will not be there. And we just don't want to see downtown Urbana or any of the businesses in Urbana fail during this crucial time. So now I invite you to, do you have any questions for me at all?
Jared?
Appreciate the presentation. Just a quick question. You know, I manage a small business myself, not Urbana-based, but Champaign-based. And a lot of what you mentioned is available as a resource through the Small Business Development Center. And I'm just curious, what can the UVA offer, and how would you differentiate the services of the UVA other than concentrating specifically on Urbana's businesses, where the SBDC does everybody in the county, but they do serve Urbana businesses? Just curious about how you differentiate what the UVA could offer with a lot of those similar services being available at the SBDC.
Yes, the SBC also, if you're talking about the program for new businesses, I assume?
Just in general, as a resource for small businesses and gaining access to state funding, getting access to knowledge. You know, you spoke about a program that you want to start, you know, basically walking any person, an entrepreneur, or anyone interested in opening a small business through all the steps of creating that, you know, getting their EIN and stuff like that. And I know that the SBDC does all of that. I mean, they do connections for banking, for loans. They help everybody find insurance and government programs and all those sorts of things. So just curious what differentiations there would be for the UVA with regard to those kinds of offerings that the SBDC does.
Well, the one thing that I can tell you right off the bat, I also went through that same program that was offered from the SBC. And the one that we're trying to offer is going to be more of a I wouldn't say hand holding, but you're not going to be able to call Don every day if you need to run ideas past him. That's not done. So you have to set up an appointment. You have to make sure you have all your questions ready. Sometimes you need someone who is in that actual field to answer the questions. Where are my wholesalers at? What should my pricing be? What kind of color scheme should I have in my building? Those kind of things are more, we want to pair people with the person who's already in that field. Like, I can tell anyone how to run a game shop, how to run a retail shop. I have all kinds of knowledge and wisdom in that area, and just general business information. But sitting down with a person and really ironing out whether or not they really want to have that business, whether that particular business is really good for them, goes beyond just your business plan. It's sitting down and having that personal relationship with that potential business owner is what we're after.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Brown?
Yeah, thanks for the update, Tina. I know obviously this has been a challenging year without uncorked and sweet corn, and I imagine market in the square revenue was down too. Normally, I think those three or maybe a few others generate $20,000 or $30,000 or more for your budget, and I see you're requesting the same amount for the city from the city. So I'm wondering where are you cutting? How are you going to make it through the year, even if you get the same amount from the city?
If we get the same amount from the city, a large portion of that actually goes toward the budget for our director. So everything that we need from the city right now, because we were not able to put on the same events, will go toward that goal right there. However, now we have opened up, I guess they've opened up for federal funding for 501c6s. So we're able to apply finally for that. But we can't plan ahead if we have no budget at all. And that's where the city comes in right now. We weren't able to get any kind of funding when they first put it out. The 501c6s was not available. So we had no budget to constantly pay people out of because we weren't able to put on the events that made our budget work. So now, right now, in a nutshell, we need our city funding to come in so that we can go ahead and have a budget to project into 2021 to hopefully put in or hopefully put on the events that we need to put on. But we're looking for other ways, growing our membership base, but we have to be able to offer the discounts and advertising and building all of those relationships with all of the marketing and advertising places such as WCIA, all of these places that want us to buy advertising and bid packages so that we can give our members the most economical bang for their buck being a member of our, being a member of the UBA. So everything hinges on whether or not we can continue our relationship with the city, bring our funding right now during this crucial time, because we did not get any funding from the government, whereas a lot of businesses were able to apply for that. We couldn't because 501c6s was not available. So it kind of crushed our budget on that issue. So, but with the continued financing, now we can move forward for 2021. And I know it's kind of, COVID has left a lot of businesses up in the air. You know, everybody has been touched. My business personally has been touched by it. There is not a single soul that hasn't been touched by COVID. So we're trying to recoup as much as we can recoup so we continue the good services that we have provided into 2021. And right now, these are the dollars that we're fighting for.
Okay, thanks.
Dennis?
What's the significance, do you think, of the Urbana businesses having a voice, an independent voice through your organization? Is it a valued thing that allows them to have some autonomy in how they interact with the community and the city and support the downtown that might be different if we relied completely on Visit Champaign County or some other or agency?
Well, I feel that there's a lot of revenue that runs through Champaign as a whole. And I feel like Urbana is forgotten about a lot of the times. Having each retailer, having every business have a singular voice through the UBA, they can come together as a whole and work together through all of the events, through all of the resources that we come together as a whole and share. Their voice can be heard. Because a lot of times people don't, the reality of the situation is people don't really think about Urbana as a place to shop. And that is killing us as a business owner in Urbana. We need to keep our voices loud and keep our voices heard, and we need to have the support from the city in order to draw more business to our Urbana area, to keep our section of town strong. And having each business have an individual voice where they can decide where they want their dollars to go, decide what events they want to be sponsoring, decide what advertising they want to use is a big, big draw. And it should never go away. We should always maintain our individual voices.
We have time for one last question. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Tina. Excellent presentation. And this will be coming up eventually for discussion.
Well, I thank you all for your time. And I also welcome, if you have any individual questions, to please contact me or myself or Darius White, who is our current director. And we'd be happy to talk with you one-on-one or to share anything else or answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next presentation is by the Civilian Police Review Board member, Katrina Kendall, and she's been included in the panel. So, Katrina, did you have a presentation or you're just going to give a verbal report?
I'm just going to give a verbal sentence.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I had to pull over. I just left a meeting at the library and I was looking a little scary-ish, being the only car left in the parking lot. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katrina Kendall, and I'm a member of the CPRB board. And we would like to present a proposed change to the CPRB ordinance and just request clarification as to section 19-28D. We are proposing that section 19-28D shall be changed to read, complaints shall be based upon account by, number 1, the person involved in the incident, number 2, a witness physically present at the incident, or 3, by a witness viewing a video recording of the incident. A minor shall be represented by a parent or guardian in all matters pertaining to the complaint.
Okay. Any questions from council members? Mary Alice.
Thank you, Katrina. I was wondering, was there any discussion about how to handle multiple complaints watching the same video?
We did not discuss that, but I will bring that up. Is it multiple complaints? same video. Did you have further questions in regards to that? Because are you saying that you would get different views, or when you posed that question, what did you mean?
Well, let's say 10 people watch the same video,
Uh-huh.
have a complaint about it, is that treated as one case or 10 cases?
Okay. We will make, I see your point. Thank you for bringing that up. And I will bring that to our next meeting. 1 complaint or 10 cases. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Katrina? Sharice?
I just missed the second thing that she said, a person involved, or what was the second thing?
The number 1, you want me to read it? Would you like me to reread it again?
No, I just, I know you
Number
want the
2,
yeah, number 2.
a witness physically present at the incident.
Okay.
Dennis?
And then
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you have number 3, a person that's viewing the video.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 is by a witness viewing a video recording of the incident.
Could you be more clear about that? A witness viewing a video.
Mm-hmm. So I might not have been the witness. I might not have been there, but I viewed the video of the incident. Like it was previously recorded, but I was not there.
Okay.
Does that make-
Dennis?
And so I have a question about number 3 as well. Is it required that the individual who is the quote victim of an incident, which the complaint is being based upon, approve the intervening into her situation by third persons who may or may not even she know?
We did have that discussion. We kind of tabled it because the person could be re-traumatized and they could not want that video to happen. So we're still in discussions about that, but that is something that we did talk about, because just because someone videoed the incident that occurred, I should have the right as the person that was videoed in that to say whether or not I want to be the one to make the complaint. So we had a lot of discussion right on that.
I think that bears a lot of discussion, all right, because you can have third persons who you have no idea who they are suddenly managing your experience.
Correct. That's a good word. Yes.
Just wondering.
Bill?
Yeah, was there any discussion of completeness of the video? I guess it would go through the same complaint process where it would go through the police department first. So was the thinking if it was just a short segment that really didn't show the whole incident, it would be determined at that first stage that it didn't show enough, and maybe with the investigation, the police department would say what else happened, and then that would go back to you guys, and you would decide whether or not that was adequate. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of different kinds of video recording. Some could be, a 5-second clip that shows something that might not have any context.
That is correct. And we did not discuss what you just posed in regards to the completeness of the video in regards to time or the thoroughness of the video. We did not get to that part of our discussion. But I'm making notes on everything that you all are saying, and that is something that really needs to be discussed, because you're right. You can have a short video that has a lot of information and gives you everything, or you can have a long video waiting for something and it's not there. So we need to maybe specify in regards to the completeness of the video recording. Is that what I got, what you're saying?
Yeah, that was just, I wondered if you discussed that. Thanks.
No, we did not.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more.
Sure.
So Are the videos then that are being referenced, they have to be in the public domain, right? In some manner. They have to be released. They can't be redacted, I guess. If there was a complaint or an investigation going on, videos would often be redacted or not available. So I guess with the videos that we're speaking about that relate to this instance must be somehow cleared or in the public domain.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, okay, so at this point, the CPRB is proposing a change to the ordinance. In order to do that, the first step would be, if you are interested in pursuing this, you would need to direct staff to bring a proposed ordinance to committee of the whole for consideration. If the council wants to pursue this.
We would.
And that's your recommendation to the council, a request of the council.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sharice.
I guess I have another question regarding the C, number 3, person viewing the video. I guess what I want to understand is what standing or what legal standing a person would have that viewed a video on YouTube. Is it a different perspective, or I'm trying to understand why. And of course I need to know the language of the ordinance regarding that why a person viewing a video on YouTube in Pennsylvania would be able to file a complaint to the CPRB in Urbana.
Well, I don't try to know things that I don't, and I'm fairly new to the CPRB board. Thinking outside of the box, the only thing that I could think of, and I'm answering for myself, but I will take it back to the board. If a person is viewing a video here, I hope that they would know the person that's in the video, just not a random, because I don't think a person in Pennsylvania should have a vested interest in a video that's here in Illinois. They should have a vested interest, maybe know the person or know of the person or someone to help, but just a random watching a video from Pennsylvania to Illinois would have no relevance on this video to the CPRB board.
Right. So that's why I'm thinking that the language maybe needs to be a bit more specific about certain things.
Okay.
If it's going to be, I mean, it could be a random person here in Champaign-Urbana too, but
right.
I took it to the nth degree and decided to pick another state, because when we're talking about anybody, that when you say a person filing a complaint, that's like, you go to the movie and you don't like the movie, so you just complain to the distributor.
Okay.
Or something.
Right.
So there should be.
So you're saying to clarify more.
There needs to be some clarification.
Okay, more clarification.
Because that person is not a witness. That person is viewing something, but they're not necessarily a witness or as correct. Number A is A and B as they are as the. There's no comparison in my opinion.
But these are all issues that would have to be worked through as this ordinance, with regard to this ordinance. And they're all very good questions you're raising, actually.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
So what's the sense of the council? Mary Alice.
I feel like we need to hear a bit more from CPRB in terms of all these questions that we've been asking tonight, so we can get a better sense.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure how much of that would go into the ordinance versus the procedures of, how you designate whether or not a video is something that this particular video, this 30-second video, is something that you can write a complaint upon. But I would like to hear the conversation from CPRB before moving forward.
Okay. Bill Colbrook.
It just sounds to me, just from the questions that have already been raised today, and I've got some questions of my own regarding the video evidence, that there's a lot more work to be done before the council takes any action at all.
I would suggest if you do have more questions, submit them to the chair of the CPRB. We can provide that contact information and they can take those under consideration. And it sounds like you're asking for more, well, just some answers to the questions that were raised tonight. Dennis.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very interesting proposal. You know, we're all interested in transparency and due process and everything. But I think because of these questions that are pretty significant, really, about like the status of people and what, you know, to what degree is there evidence in a video, or are you going to be able to refer to 20 videos or whatever, that the CPRB needs to shore this up more before we can really talk about it But please come back, you know, and speak to us again with something more well thought out, I think, detailed.
Okay. Any further recommendations for Katrina? Okay, we'll get these questions compiled, get them to the board, and anything else you want to ask, well, Carol, do you want to collect these questions, or who would be the person?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
and
so
I'll type these up, circulate it. I'll get the language that Katrina read tonight, just so everybody could have it for their reference, and we'll collect any additional questions that council has. Okay. So you can send all that to me.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Drive safely.
I pulled over. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Good to know.
Bye. All right. Bye.
Bye. Okay, next on the agenda is public input. If you would like to speak tonight, I would ask that you raise your hand so we can get a count. Okay, I'm seeing 5 hands, 6 hands raised. 7. Okay, we'll start with Sarah Nixon.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I was under the impression that I had joined the meeting very late tonight and was likely one of the last people to raise their hands. If that is the case, that was more or less deliberate on my part, as I do need a few extra minutes. So if that is the case, is there any way you could skip me, go on to whoever raised their hand before I did, and then come back to me? If not, I will.
Yes, we can come back to you. I'll go on to Alan
Okay.
Axelrod.
Thank you.
Alrighty, can you hear me?
Yes, Alan.
Okay, so could you show me the clock real quick? I need to make sure that I can fit all this in.
It's coming.
Thank you. Alrighty. So last week was a roller coaster week for me. I'm the campaign lead of the No Ameren Shutoffs campaign. That is a coalition of 35 organizations, most of whom are in Central Illinois, but we have statewide membership. It is a $0 all-volunteer grassroots campaign. On Monday, announced Tuesday of last week, Governor Pritzker and the Illinois Commerce Commission released a basically had a press release where they said that a 6-month voluntary moratorium on utility shutoffs has been achieved. That was the 4th concession that our campaign has won, the 3rd moratorium extension that our campaign has won, and they've been voluntary the whole time. This is grossly unsatisfactory because there are over 20 states that have mandatory utility protections, including Kentucky. The state of Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul has stronger utility protections than us. What is going on here? As if that wasn't interesting enough, within 72 hours of this 6-month moratorium being adopted, it was violated. Ameren, Illinois has been giving their employees instructions contradictory to the press release. And I'm going to pull up a statement from an anonymous Ameren employee that was provided to me. So their statement reads, oh, where'd it go? Great. Okay, so the short version of this statement is that they are operating under different standards than was announced on the Illinois Commerce Commission press release. And so if they are not operating entirely in bad faith, they are operating in contradiction with the press release. Further, Governor J.B. Pritzker on Saturday decided to lie to the public. And this is inexcusable. He claims to be using all powers at his disposal, yet in 20 ILCS 3305/7, section 7, parentheses 12, I don't know how to refer to that more clearly, it states that the governor under emergency powers has the ability to control the use, sale, or distribution of services as may be necessary to promote and secure the safety and protection of the civilian population. That similar language was used by the governor in Kentucky to institute a mandatory utility shutoffs moratorium. The governor has refused to state publicly whether or not he has the executive power to do so because he knows what the answer is and cannot comment on that. That is why it is beyond importance that all our public officials take the initiative and apply pressure to Governor J.B. Pritzker's office on behalf of Illinois residents. It wasn't just Alton that had their power shut off. It was Bloomington. It was Whitfield County. These places having their power shut off during a pandemic due to bad faith operations of a multi-billion-dollar corporation is not even the entirety of the problem that we are facing. Due to shenanigans from a billionaire's son, Howard Buffett, the son of Warren Buffett, in Decatur, he, through his foundation, the Howard Buffett Foundation, provided a $500,000 grant to the city of Decatur to incentivize them to vote down legalization of the sale of cannabis. City council persons even said that on public record, that that was the reason why they were voting the way they did. Because of this, Decatorites go to Springfield, Bloomington Normal, and Champaign-Urbana when they want to get cannabis. And they have been shutting off water, according to Councilman David Horn of the Decatur City Council, initially at a rate of 100 a day. And for reference, North Carolina, South Carolina, one of the Carolinas was reportedly shutting off water at a rate of 300 or 400 a day. One city started off with 1/3 or 1/4 the rate of an entire state's rate of shutting off people's water during a pandemic. It's now at a rate of 20 to 25, but the fact remains, as their city becomes less safe, so do all of ours because of how connected we are. So we need mandatory protections for corporations, cooperatives, and municipal utilities. Please advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Tracy Chong.
Hi, could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tracy Chong from Urbana. Tonight, I will speak more about FOIA issues. In the past few weeks, the Illinois Public Access Counselor has made several determinations that the exorbitant fees charged to residents for public records are indeed in violation of the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. One would think that after being found breaking state law, the city of Urbana would do the right thing and apologize to the public and start complying with the FOIA law. Instead, and not surprising, the leadership of Urbana has refused to put their ego aside and have resorted to even more ridiculous tactics to create barriers to obtaining police records. Lately, FOIA officer Kurt Borman has been using very questionable tactics to designate requests as voluminous requests, yet another method to withhold public records. I hope City Council will look into the recent determinations of FOIA misconduct, as well as the new shady tactics in response to these violations before the upcoming FOIA discussion. Next up, the Civilian Police Review Board. I was happy to hear that CPRB board members have discussed and agreed that the public should be able to make a civilian complaint against the police after witnessing the alleged misconduct via video. If you guys haven't listened to last week's, the past meeting, maybe you should, because that's where the discussion took place. It should be noted that there is nothing in the current ordinance that prohibit the public from making a complaint based on witnessing a misconduct via video. As pointed out by 3 different attorneys, the term first-hand account does include watching a video. This was in contrast to the opinion of City Attorney James Simon, who was the only attorney who disagreed and used irrelevant arguments regarding the language of the ordinance, presumably to protect the interest of city staff and Urbana Police Department, and definitely not in the interest of the public. Based on the current language in the CPRB ordinance, city staff and UPD have already been wrongly denying civilian complaints based on their own interpretation of the ordinance. So I'm glad that despite blowback from city staff and UPD who want to protect their own interests, CPRB board members are actually addressing this issue and reducing barriers to the complaint process. So I really hope that the CPRB does have the support of City Council moving forward. Okay, I'm going to end with a question. Has the city heard back from Hillard Hines about the issue of the safety mechanism of Officer Eric Ruff's gun being ready to fire during the whole Aaliyah Lewis arrest? Both the Urbana Police Review and the Hillard Hines Review either missed or purposely failed to address one of the most unsafe aspects of the arrest, where the safety mechanism of Officer Ruff's rifle was off during the whole struggle. This means that his weapon was ready to fire at just the pull of a trigger. When this issue was brought up during the Hillard Hines presentation, Deborah Kirby gave a very meaningless response, but she did say that the team would look into it. So have any one of you looked into it? Has the city received a response? If not, it has been weeks. Why has there been no follow-up? Is this going to be another issue that's just swept under the rug with the hopes that the public forgets? This should not take this many weeks, and I really hope that we can get an answer to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is John Kraft.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I reviewed a video from your last meeting and was appalled at the instructions, Mayor, that you gave for people wanting to speak, prohibiting negative comments, prohibiting people from mentioning other people's names. And That's ridiculous. It violates the Open Meetings Act. I really think you should issue an apology on the record for doing what you did. And you should maybe include that in your public comment ordinance in the future, that you can't prohibit negative comments or mentioning people by name. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Megan McDonald.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Hello, Council. My name is Megan McDonald, and I'm from Ward 5. I don't have a lot prepared today, but I'm glad that I have 5 minutes, and I will take up that whole 5 minutes. So, yeah, another week trying to facilitate mutual aid in a community that pretends to have its community care together. If you don't know what mutual aid means, it's when the community supports each other with either groceries or money or housing, because those resources really don't exist from our government, whether that's local or national. I see it, like, you know, you can talk about, oh, this is here and this is there, but honestly, a lot of it is, one, in Champaign, and then a lot of it, too, is really not accessible. We can barely get a food pantry to stay up in Champaign without opposition. And in Urbana, we can have all the food pantries we want without a problem, because I guess, you know, we're Urbana. But yet we don't have a shelter for those without homes here. We don't have consistent soup kitchen locations. I've seen maybe like a soup kitchen like truck or van maybe one time in the Busey Bank parking lot in downtown Urbana. We have plenty of money within the city budget. It's in the police budget. You all know that. The community knows that. The police aren't keeping us safe. They're not reducing gun violence. I guess they're doing their job, which you all, or at least the mayor of Champaign, the mayor of Urbana, and the police chief of Champaign, and you know, a lot of people at the panel a couple months ago said that the job of the police was to serve. One, I don't think they do that. I think their real job is to protect property, and maybe they do that. But they don't keep us safe. They don't reduce gun violence. Gun violence is just going up, and so is their budget. Every year, y'all are voting to approve a more increased budget, and I don't know what you all were talking about in that closed session, and I don't know when y'all are going to start talking about amending this budget, because I thought that you said in August or September that you were going to start talking about it, and it's almost October. So yeah, when are you going to talk about it? Like Bill Brown brought up, like people aren't driving as much. People aren't going out as much. Are there as many calls to the police? Like, do we need, we cut 2% of the police budget. Like, let's trim it some more. We have needs that money could go towards. What else could I talk about? Oh, cops in schools. I'm not going to call them school resource officers because I don't really know what resources we're all pretending that they provide. I'm going to quote a comrade and say that the function of an officer is that when they see something happen in the school, they view it through the lens of the criminal justice system, and they begin a process that ends with a young adult having the state's attorney dig up that child's record and say they have prior records as juveniles, and that's how misdemeanors get turned into felonies, and that's how the participants at the township have barriers to housing and unemployment. And I think that really connects kind of everything that I've said so far in these last 4 minutes, just talking about how we really lack the resources to help people, and that's why people like me and people like Rita and Justin and Alan and a lot of these people that speak up at these town meetings that you're trying to censor are really trying really hard to keep their communities safe and keep their lights on and keep them fed, because maybe some of them are dealing with the effects and the long-term results of what happens when you put police in schools and you criminalize children. And that relates back to Aaliyah Lewis. Like, Aaliyah Lewis went to a juvenile detention center for 11 months when she was a juvenile. You don't think that's affected her path? You don't think that that affects Julia Reitz's perspective on her? I just think you all really need to consider your votes and your opinions and your perspectives on this, and maybe consider that I don't even know how to appeal to you all anymore. Just try to think outside of your own perspective, and yeah, good luck. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Rita Connerly.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Rita Connerly. I live in Champaign County, and I come to the board this evening. I'm not prepared, but I had to come and speak as it relates to a lot of ongoing issues. I agree with what Megan is saying. It's kind of difficult coming to these meetings anymore because now you, Diane, are trying to censor what citizens can say. My question to you is, who are you to think that you can denote what's negative? The comments that citizens are giving here are what they're feeling, what they're seeing, because we actually are out in the community, civically engaging and seeing what's going on. And so it's just unfair for you to use your power in a way in which is preventing citizens from wanting to come forward. I can say on another note that most recently I attended a Scouts of America little visit, and Bryant Seraphin was there. I seen him in a different light. However, it's still inexcusable to his inability to press charges against those officers or take action against the officers that beat up Aaliyah Lewis. And yeah, like you, maybe I did see him in a different light and viewed him as a good person in that moment, but who are you to make all these demands of the city? You are just one person of many, and you are one white privileged person. I'm going to need you to, for a moment, put your shoes in Aaliyah Lewis's and imagine yourself laying on the ground with a gun swinging over your head while you're getting beat up by the police, and having that on public display and now have to live your life. That's unacceptable. Additionally, as Megan was saying, we're having issues with providing those who are less fortunate food in Champaign. It is my hopes that when we bring pop-up pantries to Urbana, that we can have a working relationship so that we can serve the community there in that area with food as well. I really don't have much more to say other than defund the police. And like Megan noted, cops out of our schools, they don't make any situations better. They actually add to some of the arrests against Black and brown bodies, as the data has shown. And most recently, I've read an article where you guys aren't even being truthful to the federal government when it comes to the arrests being made. So how can we trust this government when from the top down, it's nothing but distrust? You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Next up is Christopher Hansen.
Hi, my name is Christopher Hansen. I live in Urbana. It was interesting last week to watch City Attorney James Simon deliver a threat against the residents of Urbana, suggesting that he or the city may turn to suing people who speak about corruption and misconduct within the Urbana government. I thought to myself, that's exactly what a corrupt government official would do, threaten to shut down free speech. You do not have the power to limit speech in the ways that Marlon and Simon are suggesting. What Marlon did at the September 14th meeting was entirely illegal. You can't make rules against negative comments or against criticizing public officials. I don't know what you were thinking. And you certainly can't invent new time limits that violate the city code. I think the public should keep in mind, especially since so many people are attending the meetings and speaking about issues of policing and the justice system, we have a police officer on the city council, William Colebrook. And Colebrook just sat there and watched as Marlon broke the law. An Open Meetings Act violation is a criminal offense, and Colebrook just let her do it. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes people so upset. One person of a particular skin color who isn't very wealthy, who hasn't done anything wrong and just wants to go home, gets physically battered and put in jail and has charges piled upon them. Another person of a different skin color and much wealthier very flagrantly commits crimes against the people, and they just get a free pass. If Julia Reitz was a person of integrity instead of a vain politician, Marlon would be facing charges for Open Meetings Act violations. So this is the justice system that everyone is so unhappy about, and rightly so. In regards to Marlon's new ordinance on public input, I thought it was interesting when the council tried to discuss the notions of, quote, abusive or threatening language. As usual, James Simon had no meaningful answer about this, and he started muttering some nonsense about using Webster's dictionary or something, and he never came close to actually settling the issue. And it seems to me that the method of study for this question is pretty obvious. Marlon has alleged that there have been a significant quantity of unacceptable comments from the public in the past. What should happen before you consider this issue again is that Marlon and Simon should revisit those meetings and cite all of the comments that their new law would disallow and why. We don't have to speak hypothetically because we have probably 30 or 40 hours of very recent data that we can send through this very poorly explained filter so we can see how Marlon intends for it to work. What did surprise me was just how open and pliable the city council members seemed to be to restricting speech. I don't think that what Marlon did on September 14th or what she is pushing forth as new public input rules would have gained any support a year ago. And after some contemplation, what occurred to me is that Urbana has actually normalized corruption. And I think the council hasn't even realized it. We have seen Diane Marlin and James Simon and Kurt Borman conspire to defraud the residents of Urbana of thousands of dollars for attempting to view public records through FOIA. We have seen the same city staff make all manner of illegal efforts to thwart the efforts of Urbana residents who seek public records. And when people started complaining publicly, we watched Marlon make a criminal of herself by violating the Open Meetings Act, and somehow the council found that entirely acceptable. So what you've done is normalize corruption instead of making efforts to get rid of it. Instead of talking about ways to limit access to public records and to public meetings, you should be doing the opposite. Right now is the time that you need to be bolstering the public's right to be involved with their government because it's being threatened. Instead of giving Marlon more power to mute speakers, we should be making efforts to recall her from the position of mayor, because in Urbana, we find it unacceptable for the mayor and her goons to defraud and silence the public. In reality, I have very little confidence that this council will actually do anything meaningful. You guys mostly prefer to take a passive role, and you mostly just follow and believe whatever is placed in front of you. However, I do predict Marlon will be issuing a public apology to me and to the other people that she's abused and to the public. Corruption only lasts so long before it attracts more attention than it can handle, and I think we've about reached that point in Urbana. So it is unfortunate that our elected officials are offloading all of that work onto civilians, but we will eventually fix what you've broken. Since we have a little bit of time left, putting that closed session meeting at the beginning of a council meeting and then spending an hour and 45 minutes, that was inappropriate. I mean, you guys made the public wait. You had people giving presentations that you had wait. You should have your closed session at the end of the meeting. It was just really inconsiderate. I think in the interest of transparency, you should at least tell the public specifically what you were talking about that whole time. If we actually care about transparency in Urbana, let's talk about it. All right, thank you.
Justin Hendricks.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, this is Justin Michael Hendricks, Champaign, Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, Parkland College student. I'm just gonna go ahead and piggyback off Rita and everyone else that's talking. Diane, who are you? Once again, Diane, who are you? You do not have a right to silence the public. but you do have a right to enforce COVID rules and restrictions when you went out to back the blue. Once again, Diane, you do not have a right to silence the public, but you do have a right to enforce COVID restriction rules when you were out to back the blue. I also want to say Champaign has started a police communication engagement with the community. I think Urbana needs to start to do the same thing and reflect it as well. I also am hopeful that when we put the pop-up pantries throughout the city, that Urbana is open to it and we are not met with discrimination and disparities from privileged individuals, such as people that may sit on this council themselves. As I say, Diane, again, who are you? I do not appreciate you trying to silence the public. And as the last caller called in, I think we should know what took so long for you all to meet in silence, especially if it's not beneficial to us all. We should know, because once again, this is what happens when people such as Tracy Chung has poked holes in your cases. I think she should be taken into consideration when you guys are moving forward with the Leah Lewis case, because what she has done is really expose you all and show that you guys need to really pay attention when you bring people in to then embarrass yourselves further. Once again, Diane, who are you? I hope you ask yourself that tonight when you think about how you're trying to silence the public. Once again, Justin Michael Hendricks, the People's Mayor. Take care. Bye-bye.
And last speaker is Sarah Nixon.
Okay. My name is Sarah Nixon, and I'm speaking as a concerned Urbana resident. Many citizens of Urbana regularly attend city council meetings to voice concerns about issues that affect our community, about which we and our neighbors feel very strongly. We speak to be heard. Instead, we are being increasingly censored and silenced. Squelching citizen speech because the city leadership wants to suppress the message, suppress criticism, is not the product of a healthy government. It is symptomatic of political pathology, of toxic totalitarian mentality. What are the legal parameters surrounding the regulation of citizen speech? On this subject, the Federal Court of Appeals has stated citizens have an enormous First Amendment interest in directing speech about public issues to those who govern their city. The public comment period during our city council meetings is at the very least a limited public forum during which free speech rights receive heightened protection. And content-based exclusions face a high constitutional hurdle. So the mayor and city staff get to set the agenda and the venue, and you may impose time and manner restrictions, but even so, restrictions on speech must be reasonable and viewpoint neutral. Additionally, any restrictions must be applied with consistency. In other words, the city may not selectively apply the rule to certain speakers and not others. Yet that is exactly what we're seeing happen in Urbana. And the mayor and the council are violating the First Amendment when they allow speakers with whom they agree to speak longer than those with whom they do not agree. Furthermore, the government can silence speakers if they are disruptive. But we are seeing the mayor and some members of our city council silencing public input that is not disruptive. Critical or negative commentary from your constituents is not disruption. It is the exercise of free speech. And equally, feedback from the public to whom you are accountable is valuable information, or should be considered valuable information by you who govern. As my second and final comment, I'd like to echo and underscore an important issue that others have recently flagged to city leadership, which is that some members of the public overcome disability in order to present themselves and their input at your meetings. I am one of those residents. As others have pointed out, some who offer public input may be doing so in spite of emotional dysregulation conditions. In my case, the impairment is not emotional, but severe and profound trauma generated by law enforcement and legal system appalling misconduct and horrendous failure to protect my child and myself too. In my case, overcoming trauma in order to speak to this government is exhausting and depleting. And it means that it takes me much, much longer than it otherwise would to organize and produce comment, written and oral, to city leadership. And I've decided to be vulnerable here and share publicly the barriers I face because I empathize with and support the others who face their own barriers, disability barriers, in coming forward to speak at these meetings. And I feel it is important that the mayor and the council be aware that when they seek to restrict free speech, and especially perhaps tone, they may be treading perilously close to a violation of citizens' rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So please keep this consideration in mind when you seek to cut people off mid-sentence. And also please consider that if I, a Caucasian, privileged, well-educated, and articulate woman, struggle to overcome trauma just to be able to show up and comment, how much more severe are the barriers faced by marginalized citizens like Aaliyah Lewis, viciously assaulted, abused, and traumatized by the racist regime of our state's prosecutor and the police and our city leadership that support that regime. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Grace Wilkin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Grace Wilkin, a resident of Urbana, and I don't have much prepared tonight, so I won't take much of our time collectively. I just wanted to chime in and say that I've really appreciated hearing 5 minutes from my fellow community members, and I've been thinking as they've been speaking of if I could only hear 3 minutes, and I think that we would lose some valuable input. So I just want to say that I appreciate the 5 minutes, and I am in support of keeping it that way because I think there's a lot of important input that we'll miss if it's limited to 3 minutes. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We are now going to move on to unfinished business. There is none. Reports of standing committees. Councilmember Jared Miller.
Last week, the Committee of the Whole met and forwarded one resolution and one ordinance to the full council, both with recommendations for approval. The first of which is resolution number 2020-09-047R, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement, JAG, and on behalf of the committee, I move approval.
I'll second that.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Mary Alice. Any further discussion? The clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Lout?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Next was ordinance number 2020-09-048, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 8687-97 and approving a special use permit from plan case number 2403-SU-20 for 1911 East Main Street. On behalf of the committee, I move approval.
I'll second.
I should point out that that actually came to council without a recommendation.
I'm sorry. You're right. It did come
ordinance.
without a recommendation.
So Marcus is here because we have, in order to present the ordinance.
Evening, Council. Thank you for hearing the presentation. The Champaign County Board and Champaign County Humane Society are jointly requesting a special use permit to allow the Humane Society to construct a new training building to expand their existing building and to operate an animal shelter in both buildings. Champaign County owns the underlying 51-acre parcel, and the Humane Society leases 3 acres on which the existing animal shelter and its grounds are located.
Marcus, could you speak up a little bit? You're pretty muted. You're pretty, yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes, but
better.
you probably don't need to go through everything, Marcus. Just
Right.
present the ordinance, including the repeal, I think is all that they probably need.
Yes. The staff recommend that if the special use permit is granted, the city council replace the original special use permit by repealing ordinance number 868797. And so the ordinance was included in this week's packet. After consulting with Assistant City Attorney Kurt Borman, he did say that the proper procedure would be to repeal the original ordinance, and that would replace the original special use permit with this new special use permit. Stephanie Henry is here from representing the applicant if you have any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? And just so we're all clear, the motion on the floor is to repeal ordinance 8687-97 and approve a special use permit.
That is correct.
Okay. Dennis, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess this is going to be a training facility that you're going to build, and it's going to be to the west of the current building. Is that the building that you're interested in erecting?
I don't think the applicant is actually a panelist yet. Here she comes.
Just gained a panelist status, maybe. Do I need to repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Stephanie.
I apologize. My internet connection is not really great tonight. But yes, if I'm understanding that question correctly, we are planning on building the training facility directly to the west there of the existing main building.
All right. I have to say that I've adopted about 3 or 4 cats in my lifetime here in Urbana from your group. So I know it can be an interesting. I don't know how you would chain a cat, but if you have options for that, please let us know.
Sounds good.
Any other questions on this? So we have a motion and a second. Are we ready for a vote, or do we need to redo that motion since it came with no recommendation? I think we're good. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, I just need to know who seconded that motion.
Bill Brown, I believe.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Laut,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Meow. I mean, yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
That motion passes. Next up, thank you, Jared. Next up are reports of special committees. We have none, I don't believe. Reports of officers. I don't think we have any. New business. Ordinance number 2020-09-050, an ordinance approving a major variance plasma facility wall signs at 907 North Lincoln. And this is ZBA case number 2020 MAJ-04, and Community Development will be presenting this.
Hello, everybody. Oops. Stout Real Estate Holdings LLC requests a major variance to allow 2 commercial wall signs in a zoning district that does not allow commercial wall signs at 907 North Lincoln Avenue. The parcel is roughly 2.6 acres. It was formerly occupied by a senior care center that closed in 2011. 907 North Lincoln Avenue is located on the west side of Lincoln Avenue between Fairlawn Avenue and King Park. The site is currently vacant, and a special use permit has been approved for a plasma facility to be built and operated at the site. Here's a zoning map. The site is zoned R5, medium high density, multiple family residential. Nearby are 2 area hospitals, apartment buildings, single and 2 family residences, and businesses along University and Lincoln Avenues. Medical clinics are allowed in the R5 zoning district with a special use permit, but wall signs are not allowed. A major variance is required to allow 2 commercial wall signs to be installed on the plasma facility. On December 2nd, 2019, City Council unanimously approved a special use permit for a medical clinic at this location. On January 27th, 2020, City Council also unanimously approved a major variance for a freestanding sign at this location. The applicant is now seeking a major variance to allow 2 commercial wall signs to be installed on the plasma facility building. Without the variance, the plasma facility could still be built and operated at this location with a freestanding sign on Lincoln Avenue. Here's a site plan for the proposed wall signs. The proposed wall signs will be located on the east and south faces of the building. The wall sign on the east face will be 99.8 square feet, which is 7.5% of the wall area. The wall sign on the south wall will be 20.6 square feet, which is 1% of the wall area. And both wall signs will be internally illuminated and subject to the submitted after-hours lighting plan. Both signs will comply with the standards for wall signs in business, industrial, MIC, CCD, and CRE zoning districts. To summarize, the ZBA found that the ZBA and staff found that this case meets all requirements for major variance. The approved special use permit permits a plasma facility to operate at this location, and allowing the applicant to install 2 commercial wall signs will be consistent with the medical clinic uses in other zoning districts. The applicant will be required to screen the south and west property lines with appropriate fencing and landscaping. The variance will not cause a nuisance to the adjacent property because the facility will comply with all landscaping and screening requirements for non-residential use adjacent to residential uses. The proposed wall signs are within the regulations for wall signs in non-residential districts. At the September 16th, 2020 meeting, the ZBA voted with 6 ayes and 0 nays to forward this case to the Urbana City Council with a recommendation to approve the request with the condition that the signs generally conform to the sign plans. The Urbana City Council has the following options: approve the ordinance with certain terms and conditions, or deny the ordinance. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the request for a major variance under the condition that the wall signs generally conform to the sign plans in Ordinance Attachment A. And the applicants are here to answer any questions, and I can answer any questions as well.
Any questions for Kat? Sharice.
How will having the wall signs on the building, is that specifically so that the building can be detected, or will it help illuminate the parking lot?
So they submitted an after-hours lighting plan and a standard lighting plan. That would be primarily to light the parking lot. The wall signs are purely for identification of the building.
Okay. But we've got a freestanding sign there already, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that was mentioned in the report was that they are doing a lot of landscaping along Lincoln Avenue. So having the wall signs will just help identify the building in addition to the freestanding sign.
Okay.
Other questions? Dennis?
Yeah, so the reason why there's a sign on the south side, is that going to be the main entrance? Is that where the major parking lot's going to be? And is that going to be the central entrance into the building? Or is the central entrance on the long side? I guess it's not on the long side, according to the plan.
You know, Matt Deering may be able to answer that question better than I can, and he is here now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and Scott Stow is here as well if you'd like to hear directly from the applicant. But the main entrance to the building will be on the street side, on the east side of the building, and then the main exit out of the building will be on the south side. But most of the parking and entrance to the property itself is on the south side of the building.
Okay. So there's a sign then that's put up for above the main entrance door on the east side.
Correct.
And then on the exit door, I guess that's going to be an exit door or something on the south side.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the building is situated mostly to the north on the property. So views of cars coming from the south would be able to see, you know, that side of the building as well.
Okay. So you're saying traffic going northbound would be able to see the signs on the south side of the building and the east side of the building.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm
oh,
sorry.
Go ahead.
And the standalone sign is going to be located where?
In front of the building on the east side as well.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the reason why the building itself needs to be labeled when you got the standalone sign
Just
there.
to clarify, these signs would be allowed in business, MIC, industrial districts, but because this is R5, there's an added degree of scrutiny that comes with the major variance. So they'd be allowed in other districts, but not allowed by right in R5.
Okay. Okay.
Other questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Oh, yeah.
I'll move for ordinance number 2020-09-050, an ordinance approving a major variance plasma facility wall signs at 907 North Lincoln Avenue, ZBA case number 2020 MAJ-04. Move it for approval.
I'll second it.
Moved by Sharice, seconded by Bill Colebrook. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the residents are in that area are not going to be kept up by light. Because there is an apartment building that is right by there. And I having lived in apartment buildings and there's like light shining through your bedroom window or something cannot be very helpful with your sleep pattern. So I was just, what I want is, I guess, some specification as to how many lumens or whatever, how bright those lights are going to be, and particularly the south side lights that will be facing the apartment building right next door, just south of that building and south of that parking lot. Is it, if this is going to be a bright light, you know, I don't understand the purpose otherwise.
Staff or the applicants, can you answer this question?
Maybe get into specifics as to what is meant by the after hours lighting plan.
Sure, and they might be able to provide some more detail as well, but an after hours lighting plan is a more subdued lighting plan than what would normally be on in the daytime. And this property, because it's adjacent to residential properties, will also be subject to landscaping and screening requirements on the sides that are adjacent to residential properties. So not only will the after hours lighting plan be in effect, but the landscaping and the screening should also help to block any light that would affect the residential properties.
And what time do they, are you expecting to close, Mr. Stowe?
Absolutely. So typically this operation will close at 7 p.m. daily, Monday through Saturday. As Ms. Trotter mentioned, there will be a screening fence as well as landscaping inside of the screening fence on our side of the property.
Okay.
I wanted to touch on an earlier question, which was regarding the monument sign and why that wouldn't be sufficient. There was a large walnut tree, I believe, that's right up on Lincoln Avenue, right next to one of our curb cuts.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make sure, in working with the City of Urbana Building Department, to save that tree. And we were concerned that people coming north or south, and she also mentioned that we are providing additional landscaping up against Lincoln Avenue. We want to make sure that the building was visible to anyone trying to visit the donor center and not cause any sudden braking coming up the street or anything along those lines. So.
Okay.
Dennis, you had a comment?
Yeah. I was looking at the plan that was also provided in our packet, which I think was also presented to the Plan Commission, although I didn't watch that event. And on page 23 and 24, it's color images of two different units that were built by this company, one at Charlotte, North Carolina, and one at Tucker, Georgia. Mm-hmm. They show the illumination at night. And what I'm looking at and I want to ask about is, so the illumination of the building is actually rather soft at night and seems to be centered around the entrance door by lights that are on either side of the door. And then there might be one light attached to the wall. So it seems like at night, or these are twilight images, it's rather subdued lighting. I guess that's because the building is closed for the evening. I guess the larger question that I would ask is, are you required by the city to provide overhead lighting in the parking lot? Because my question would be, I would think that lighting in the parking lot, if it were on in the evening, would be much more disruptive than the wall signs that we're talking about. So what lighting requirements do you have for the parking lot? And maybe this is something Lori can answer us.
Typically, we work with the local municipality based on what their lighting code is. We always do a study for parking lots. These are largely directional lights. They're, typically in larger developments, strip shopping centers, usually anchored by big box tenants. You'll have lights that are very high while they are directional, pointing down. I think a lot of times you get that effect where neighboring residences, or in this case, an apartment building, it might be a disruption to them. Given the fact that this is a freestanding building on its own property, I'm pretty sure that the lighting is not going to be at an elevation that would have an adverse effect to our neighbors. But we are working with the City of Urbana and the building department on our plan. We already have a permit. And we followed all regulations based on screening, so on and so forth.
And just to add to that, to get a little more specific, so every building permit that has 3 or more light fixtures proposed requires a photometric plan, which outlines the foot candles throughout the site that are put out by that light. And in particular, we're looking at what that number is along the property line. There isn't much allowance for spillover at the property line.
So Lori, obviously there's going to be street lights along Lincoln, which is going to illuminate this parking lot pretty well. Are they required to put in a raised post light on this property? Or, I mean, right now they have one indicated in the two illustrations that I referred to. But does the city require them to put post lights up in their parking lot?
I would say typically not. So there are requirements for like doors on the buildings for egress purposes and whatnot. So as long as that kind of thing is taken care of, then I will say that normally we're trying to get people to put in fewer lights. So I am about 99.9% sure we would not require one in the parking lot. I have never seen it unless there is other lighting around, because typically somebody would like some lighting in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. But I will confirm this, but typically it's not required.
Okay, I think that I think it helps mitigate the question about over lighting, perhaps.
Thank you, Dennis.
Any other discussion? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Lout?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is resolution number 2020-09-048R, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Champaign and the City of Urbana regarding the Champaign Diversity Advancement Program. Carol Mitten.
Hi. You've heard us speak about the CDAP program a few times before, and this is a significant investment on the part of the City of Champaign to develop a database of minority and women-owned businesses and folks that have been in locations that are locally economically challenged, in order to promote them and their business enterprises for purposes of the general public, but more specifically for government procurement purposes. And they are allowing us through this intergovernmental agreement, should you approve it, to leverage the significant efforts that they've made already, not only to get access to the database with which the general public has, but more to promote that we recognize their certification, and also to advertise the certification in our solicitations, our ITBs, our RFPs, and so forth. So this is an important step that we'd like to take. It's a foundational step for future efforts in setting aspirational goals for contracting for specific items and goods and services. So I strongly recommend that you approve the resolution. Happy to answer any questions.
Mary Alice.
So this is just a one-year fee according to this memo. So what are I assume that they're going to keep this database up to date, since we spent all this time and resources to build it. Is the intention that we would contribute every year, or is the intention that we just contribute once?
No, that we contribute every year. And I mean, they've made a significant investment. They have dedicated staff to this effort. So in that vein, this is something that we really couldn't afford to do ourselves. So our ability to leverage this with a $5,000 investment is pretty significant in terms of the benefit we get.
So how long does that last for? How long does it last that we pay $5,000 a year? I couldn't find the termination date in here. Maybe I just missed it.
That's a good question. Since it's anticipated to last for a year, for the first year of this agreement, I guess it'll be based on the date that it's signed.
Okay, but then, I mean, if we're intending to pay $5,000 every year, wouldn't we have like a date in which it was, like 5 years, 2 years?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Now, I was just trying to figure out, like, how long does this intergovernmental agreement last? What's the end?
I see.
It's, it'll renew annually, and it'll, according to the language, it remains in effect unless terminated by 30 days written notice.
Okay, so that means it's just in perpetuity?
Unless we notify.
Yeah.
I haven't seen intergovernmental agreements that had it in perpetuity. I thought that we always had some kind of date on it.
I can't speak to that. I don't. Jim seems to want to interject here.
There are no problems with that agreement or that kind of a provision, so long as one or both parties can terminate the agreement on a reasonable notice. And I believe this one allows for termination on, I think it's 30 days notice. I'm quickly going through it.
Yes, 30.
So if we found that the agreement was not working out for us, which I doubt we would find, but if that were the case, or the city council for whatever reason decided they did not want to continue in the agreement, then the city could terminate. So there's an out, definitely an out.
Okay. So I realize this is only $5,000, but where does this come out of the budget?
It's been budgeted for the past couple of years because we've been talking about them. And Elizabeth had given me the line item, but I don't have that handy. But it is specifically in the budget.
Is it under economic development?
I can get you that. I can get you that. I just can't tell you right now.
Okay. All right.
It's been a goal for a while to be able to participate in this, and so I'm glad we're finally there. Can we get a motion?
Sure, I'll do that. It strikes me that this is something that Aaron Ammons would have been promoting. Resolution number, I move that we adopt a resolution 2020-09-048R, a resolution approving and authorizing the extension of an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Champaign, Illinois, and the city of Urbana, Illinois, regarding a Champaign diversity advancement program.
I'll second.
Moved by Dennis. I heard Sharice first. Seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion? I just want to say I appreciate the efforts of the city of Champaign and their willingness to enter into this agreement with us. It's going to help a lot. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Laut?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. Yes, we need a motion for extending the meeting.
I make a motion to extend the meeting until 10:45.
Okay. Seconded by Julie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Ms. Laut?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
That motion passes. My wall clock is 4 minutes off, so I had 4 more minutes than I actually did. Okay, last item on the agenda is ordinance 2020-09-051, which is an ordinance ratifying the extension of emergency order number 20-09, which is continued guidelines concerning numbers of attendees, social distancing, use of face coverings at parties and other gatherings. If you recall, about a month ago, you passed the original emergency order. It restricted the number of attendees at parties in private residence and property around residences to 10 plus the household members, required social distancing, and then the use of face coverings. And the council put a an end date on that of September 28th, which is today. So based on recommendations of the Public Health District, the COVID test results that we're seeing on campus and around the community, and the meetings that we've had over the last couple of weeks as far as policies that need to continue in the city, I'm recommending, and well, actually I signed the emergency order extending these guidelines and extending through November 1st of this year. That coincides with our suspension of public event permits, which also goes through November 1st. And of course, as we get closer to that date, we'll be evaluating that again. Mary Alice.
I'm wondering if we have any information in terms of the number of calls that we've gotten, the number of people who have been fined, those kinds of details.
I don't have it with me. It's been relatively few in Urbana. We've had, I know, at least one NTA in a large apartment complex. A number of the calls have been related to noise, but overall in the community, having these orders in place has helped significantly. Where they're seeing major reductions are the calls for service on campus. They reported earlier last week that the first weekend they had over 100 calls for service related to parties in the Champaign side of campus, but in the campus town area. That went down to another number, and then the latest one was in the 40s. So the compliance and the fact that we have these citywide orders has a cumulative effect. Urbana's been pretty good.
So, to the best of your knowledge, has anybody actually been fined?
Yes, at oh, it's so late, I'm blanking on the name of the huge apartment complex north of University Avenue, west of Lincoln.
One north?
No, on University Avenue.
Oh, on University.
On University, yeah. So there's one NTA, a couple of NTAs related to that.
I can make a motion.
That would be great.
Okay. All right. I move ordinance.
We're all working in slow motion right now.
051, an ordinance ratifying of extension of emergency order 20-09 for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Sharice. Any further discussion? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Wait. I wanted to say one thing.
Yes.
Because I know this is for private gatherings, right? Correct. So my other question, kind of in the same vein, but not. We still have the ordinance in place regarding the restaurants too, right?
Correct. Well, depends on which one. We do not have the one that restricted campus area restaurants to outdoor dining only has expired and was not renewed.
Okay.
Phase 4 guidelines are still in effect, and restaurants in Urbana can do indoor dining as long as they're complying with the Phase 4 guidelines. And they can do outdoor dining as well.
It's just, I took my mom out and it was just, and there was a couple of people that weren't masked, and I was wondering, I confronted the manager about it, but how
if masking enforcement would be reported to the Public Health District.
Okay. If I know, then I'm hoping anybody else is listening knows, they'll know what to do as well. Okay.
And there was one convenience store in Urbana that was cited by Public Health for not enforcing the mask guidelines as well.
Because it's just in lines or in common places. It's not when you're sitting across the table from each other. That's my understanding of the ordinance.
For masking?
Yeah.
Well, you're supposed to be masked when you're talking to the waitress or when you're not eating or drinking.
Right. Okay. All right. I just wanted to, okay. And
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Ms. Lout,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
No.
That motion passes. Thank you. And with no further business before this council, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.